Hachette Audio presents Satori, written by Winslow, read by Holter Graham.
To Richard Pine. Part 1. Tokyo, October, 1951. Chapter 1. Nicholai Hel watched the maple leaf drop from the branch, flutter in the slight breeze, then fall gently to the ground. It was beautiful. Savoring the first glimpse of nature that he'd had after 3 years of solitary confinement in an American prison cell, he breathed in the crisp autumn air, let it fill his lungs, and held it for a few moments before he exhaled. Haverford mistook it for a sigh. "Glad to be out?" the agent asked. Nicholai didn't respond. The American was as nothing to him, a mere merchant like the rest of his compatriots, peddling espionage instead of automobiles, shaving cream, or Coca-Cola. Nicholai had no intention of engaging in meaningless conversation, never mind allowing this functionary access to his personal thoughts. Of course he was glad to be out, he thought, as he looked back at the bleak gray walls of Sugamo Prison. But why did Westerners feel a need to voice the obvious, or attempt to give expression to the ineffable? It was the nature of a maple leaf to drop in the autumn. I killed General Kishikawa, as close to a father as I ever had, because it was my filial nature and duty to do so. The Americans imprisoned me for it because they could do nothing else, given their nature. And now they offer me my freedom because they need me. Nicholai resumed his walk along the pebbled path flanked by the maple trees. A bit surprised that he felt a twinge of anxiety at being outside the closed, small space of his cell, he fought off the wave of dizziness brought on by the open sky. This world was large and empty. He had no one left in it except himself. His own adequate company for 3 years, he was re-entering a world that he no longer knew at the age of 26. Haverford had anticipated this, having consulted a psychologist on the issues that face prisoners going back into society. The classic Freudian, replete with the stereotypical Viennese accent, had advised Haverford that the subject would have become used to the limitations of his confinement and feel overwhelmed at first by the sheer space suddenly confronting him in the outside world. It would be prudent, the doctor warned, to transfer the man to a small, windowless room with voluntary access to a yard or garden so that he could gradually acclimate himself. Open spaces, or a crowded city with its bustling population and incessant noise, would be likely to upset the subject. So Haverford had arranged for a small room in a quiet safe house in the Tokyo suburbs. But from what he could learn from what there was to be learned of Nicholai Hel, he couldn't imagine the man being easily overwhelmed or upset. Hel displayed preternatural self-possession, a calm that was almost condescending, confidence that often crossed the line into arrogance. On the surface, Hel appeared to be a perfect blend of his aristocratic Russian mother and his samurai surrogate father, the war criminal Kishikawa, whom he had saved from the shame of a hangman's noose with a single finger thrust to the trachea. Despite his blonde hair and vibrant green eyes, Haverford thought, Hel is more Asian than Western. He even walks like an Asian, his arms crossed behind his back so as to take up as little space as possible and not cause inconvenience to anyone coming from the other direction, his tall, thin frame slightly stooped in modesty. European in appearance, Haverford decided, Asian in substance. Well, it made sense. He was raised by his emigre mother in Shanghai, and then mentored by Kishikawa when the Japs took the city. After the mother died, Kishikawa moved the boy to Japan to live with and study under a master of the impossibly complicated and nuanced board game Go, a sort of Jap chess, albeit 100-fold more difficult. Hel became a master in his own right. So is it any wonder that Hel thinks like an Asian? Nicholai sensed the man's thoughts.